More concentrated THC. So, what a lot of people don't realize is most addictions, for the most part, start off somewhat on a smaller scale. Over the course of time, those addictions tend to increase. So, what I mean by that, especially when it comes to marijuana consumption, is most people just start off taking a couple of drags off of a joint. They don't really smoke a lot, but they smoke some. And over the course of time, that turns from, like a joint to then you moving into maybe packing a bowl, to then you might be doing bong rips, and then you might be doing dabs, and then you might be getting into carts, and then you start getting into gummies and all those edibles and stuff. And then at the same time, there's almost like a similar timeline when it comes to the amount of consumption. So you go from having a couple puffs off of a joint to having a whole joint, to having a couple of joints in a day, to having a bowl or two, to having several bowls and a bong rip. Then after a bong rip, you start getting into having, a couple of dabs. And well, since you're at that and you're out and about with your day, rip a couple carts. And then when you get home, pop a couple delicious gummies to fall asleep for that night. And so really what happens with a lot of addictions is it's kind of progressional. Now, cigarettes, even though I help some clients with that, my main focus is marijuana. Cigarettes is a little bit different because kind of everybody has a capping point. So some people smoke a pack a day. Some people smoke half a pack a day. And they can stay that way for like 12 years. But for the most part, marijuana really does seem to have like a evolutionary increasing amount. Now, with that said, obviously addictions are usually just covering up something else that's going on beneath that. People tend to turn to the bottle. They tend to turn to food. They tend to turn to, pornography and other things like that when they are missing something in their life, whether that's an internal state or they're not prepared to make the changes that they need to change the way that they're going about their situations. So for me, even with like pornography, one of the reasons that I ended up quitting was I realized that the pornography was really just me supplementing from the fact that I wanted to be with more attractive women than I was dating previously. And with that understanding, I then started to act in ways that would put me into the atmosphere and the category that those types of women would also be interested in me. Because at the end of the day, if you want to attract somebody, like if you want to attract somebody that's a good communicator in a relationship, you should also be good at communicating, because if you're not, that relationship's going to fall apart too. So really the whole aspect to this is the more you evolve down this timeline of consuming more concentrated versions of THC, it's really just trying to suffocate out the things that are going on in your personal and intimate life and maybe professional life that you need to be addressing. And you may not know what that is, because obviously if you did, you would probably take that money and put it to better use, or you might not be needing to always be compromised and being high all the time. So, a lot of people don't really know why they're depressed. That's why they struggle with depression. Or they don't really know why they don't have drive anymore, or they don't really understand why they can't seem to put down the bottle, or they can't put down the cigarettes, or they can't put down the marijuana, even though they've relapsed several times. And they're always just kind of stuck in that cycle of continuously trying and then feeling like a disappointment, like they're not capable, and a failure. So if you really want to get to the root cause of this, and you want to stop kind of playing this hamster wheel, seeking out what you think is the problem, but you're not really still getting the desired change, reach out to me. Because really, as they say, the the definition of his insanity is to keep doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results. If you're not getting out of that depression, then even if you return back, then what are you doing? You're just kind of going through the same cycle. Like, we got to get to the root cause to where depression is really just something that, if it does even come up, it's in passing. It's literally just a moment, and it's not something that lingers there. So let's get down to what's going on with you specifically. And, when we get to that point, I promise you at the end of the session, you're already going to look at the beginning of the session in a completely different perspective. And I look forward to sharing that with you. Take care.